Hey, everybody. Welcome to the next Global Ready session. My name is Ryan Seuss. I am the Director of Customer Success here at Smartling. And today I am going to be talking about budget for translation, aka quality without compromise. So, some of you may remember last year I spoke at Global Ready and I talked about ROI. Specifically, I asked the question to the audience, why does your organization invest in localization? We received a ton of great answers, but ultimately it boiled down to the six that we're looking at right now. The item of these six that we're going to highlight during this conversation is increasing revenue, right? Improving that ROI. So I've mentioned ROI twice already, and I spoke about it for 15 minutes during last year's conference. So I won't test anyone. But as a reminder, the formula that we talked about is profit or that increased revenue divided by costs equals ROI. What we're really going to zero in on today is cost and spend and how we can improve ROI by spending more intelligently when it comes to localization. So we'll do a little drop in the chat here. You don't have to reveal too much information, but throw an emoji in or put the number of the group in to which category you fit into. Group one, you have an unlimited budget. Group two, you say to yourself, I wish I had an unlimited budget. Or group three, you're doing pretty well. You're making it work with what you've got. All right. And I'll give everybody a second here. If you fit into group one, I would love to talk to you about how that works. That would be really impressive. But most of the customers that we've been working with and talking to, especially over the past couple of years, have been fitting into groups 2 and 3. Either, hey, we're probably going to maintain our spend. We have what we have, and we're serving our audience with what we have. And then the other people who are saying to us, look, I got to make this work. How can I make this work? Can you help me stretch this dollar into $100? And that's what I call a localization manager dilemma. And in 2024, what I'm hearing is that there's this explosion of content. Everybody wants to serve customers in their native language, but there's a tightening of wallets. Every dollar of vendor spend is under more and more scrutiny by executive boards, by boards of directors. So companies need to be smarter and smarter about how they're spending every single penny. Now, this is a triangle that I talk about almost every single day with customers that I spoke about last year in my presentation. And it's the triangle around speed, quality, and cost. In an ideal world, and some of those unlimited budget folks might be able to get this, you would have content right away at the highest quality possible for almost $0. That's the ideal triangle, right? But how often does that happen? I don't think you find free, incredibly high quality, zero cost content under every rock that you turn over. So what localization managers or anybody who's working with translations has to decide on is, hey, do I spend a little bit more to achieve higher quality, but get things returned a little bit more slowly? Or do I put an emphasis on speed and benefit from cost, and then quality takes a loss? So that's been historically the sort of decision a localization manager, any translation spend owner would have to make, making those sacrifices in order to hit the other two corners of the triangle in the right way. So translation without Smartling, aka historic translation. It can be expensive, it could be slow, unscalable, it could be inconsistent. This is a pretty complicated framework that we have on the right. Who is the content being sent to? There are people working intensely on that content. They are fine-tuning it. They might not have the system in place that they need. It goes through a translator, an editor. before Smartling and before TMS, I know there were always complications around the editor was working on version 2 while the translator was sending through version 1, and it's duplicating efforts. It's creating all this cost that should be unnecessary. These are problems that I've heard from customers over the years, and they're real problems that our system actually tackles. So how does our system tackle it? How does Smartling tackle it? We tackle it by doing things which this title calls really simply the better way. So of course we have our TMS. So we're able to use things like our translation memory, automation, integrations, make sure, as I mentioned around versioning, we're not paying twice for the same efforts. And then what I'm really going to dive in on in the next couple slides is your translation mix. This is something where if you're a customer who has had a business review over the past couple of years with us, you know that we've talked about your translation mix with you, with your CSM. And what we've been able to find is that we can deliver content 50% faster and improve the quality at the same time. So that idealistic triangle that I was talking about is getting closer and closer to reality with Smartling, the tools and solutions that you've heard about today. So let's dive deeper. All right, so as promised, what I'm going to talk about the most is your translation mix. So everybody could answer this question, what is translation, right? So the standard traditional translation is translation and editing. This is the most commonly used workflow that we see in Smartling, that we see in the localization industry. I use the term loc manager here. I don't want to diminish anyone. I have worked with every job title under the sun. So I know there are a lot more people involved than just the loc manager in the workflow before content gets to Smartling. I know there are content creators. I know there are technical users. I'm very aware. So please, I apologize if I offend here. Once the content gets into Smartling, though, and it's authorized, the standard workflow was a translator goes in there. The translator does their magic, passes it along to a professional editor who uses their expertise to fine-tune the content. Then the content gets downloaded back from Smartling. Now, I'm using the term traditional translation and editing here. Some people call this full human translation and editing, or a two-step human translation process. And I am standing here today where I'm going to talk about the translation mix and how to do things, but I am standing here today and I'm saying this isn't going anywhere. We will be doing this, right? There's always a place for translators, editors, these experts who are so great at what they do, especially for high-touch marketing content, any specialized content, anything transactional. So one story I love to tell is that a couple of years ago, I was working with a company who is an e-commerce company. They're based out of Germany. And I got an email, or I was on a weekly call with them, and they said, "Hey, Ryan, I hate to tell you, we got an angry email from one of our customers in Germany." As a CSM, naturally, I'm concerned about that sort of feedback from my customer. And they started laughing and they said, the support ticket that was raised with our team was somebody had purchased a product from us and reached out to say, "Hey, I got your product and I realized my receipt was in English. When I purchased the product, I thought that you were a German company based on how high quality your translations are." Right. So there are studies out there where, don't quote me on the exact number, but somewhere around 40% to 50% of people will only buy content if it's in their native language. Well, excuse me, only buy products if they're being sold in their native language. That story is such a good example of that, and the perfect reason why we need those local experts to come in and work their magic on this content, right? The real human touch of translation. It's an art form. The next form of translation that I'm going to talk about as part of this translation mix is AI-powered human translation. So you heard earlier a couple slides ago that we're now translating content at half the cost and still improving and maintaining that quality. And this is exactly how it's done. One of the key components here is that human translation aspect. So I'm standing here again today. I'm not saying that we are removing humans from the workflow. We're not removing those expert translators and editors that we love so much. What we're trying to do is actually give them tools to bolster productivity and eventually create higher output with the same or improved results from the highly intense human translation and editing workflow. So, how do we do that? So, once again, we have those localization managers or marketing managers or product managers. We have them authorize the content into Smartling. When the content's in Smartling, the first thing we do is take a look at your translation memory. What we apply to your translation memory is what we call pre-processing to simplify it. Excuse me. I need some pre-processing there. And we will modify fuzzy matches to make sure they work well with your source content. For any content that doesn't have that high fuzzy match capability, we send that out and query multiple engines in order to receive the highest quality output from MT back. We use quality checks and other technology to make sure that we are serving up a very high quality translated string to the next step, which is post-processing. You've heard a little bit today about things like our AI toolkit, where we can use glossary terms and insert them, your style guide for tone. And then we also clean up content and formatting, things like tags that have thrown so many automated processes for the loop. We handle that all in step 3. Then we bring in those expert linguists into step 4. And what we've seen from our testing is an output of 98 MQM. So the output is really speaking for itself. The last member of your translation mix, I was thinking of the right word there, member type solution, would be your neural machine translation hub using that AI toolkit that we talked about. So this would be a human removed process, but via the technology that's been developed, especially over the past couple of years, we're seeing incredible strides in the quality output here. So once again, we're uploading the content to Smartling, and then we will send this content to the best MT engines in the world. And then we'll do things like fuzzy repair, glossary insertion, tone and style corrections, and tag fixing in order to create this output that comes back in the snap of your fingers, and then you're able to get your content back immediately. This is really great for some content. I was talking at the beginning, how does this all come together? I was talking at the beginning about ROI, right? And I was talking about cost. This drops your cost of translation so significantly. And some of those pieces of content that are incredibly important to your customers, like support tickets, user-generated content like customer reviews, maybe knowledge bases, you're able to use machine translation in the AI toolkit in order to make sure those translations are accurate. Think about knowledge bases, right? Historically, maybe we didn't want to use MT. We have so many product names that just won't work well with an MT engine. Now, using that glossary insertion, we can flag things as do not translate or give a preferred translation in that market in order to make sure that our brand consistency is everywhere from the landing page that they come to, that our customers come to, all the way through to when they're a customer and they have a question and they're saying, hey, I want an answer quicker than emailing my CSM, right? So that they can go to their help center and get an accurate answer from their knowledge base. So that's all to say. Really, the thing to think about is how translation is no longer a one size fits all. I actually just got off a conversation about translation mix with one of my customers, and they were asking about, hey, what about for the next year? Am I going to do NMT? Am I going to do human translation? My feedback was, we don't need to make that decision today. We can talk about each individual content type and make that selection when the time is right and we're ready to authorize that content. So as a recap, the translation mix that we're looking at is the MT Hub, the AI-powered human translation, and the specialized translation. The way this ties back to ROI is that when you look at each of these categories and each of the content types underneath those categories, you might look at them and think to yourself, hey, what is actually driving that ROI that I will want to spend a little bit extra on and I can justify that cost? Whereas something like machine translation, maybe the forum and the customer reviews, they're not directly driving ROI and are still important, but we're not able to justify the spend on those items. I actually have a really cool use case for the MT Hub, the NMT solution that we talked about, that's driving a ton of ROI. So a customer I work with, they receive RFPs in all these different languages, in German and French, and their RFP team only speaks English. So what they're currently using Smartling for is translating that content via the MT Hub from German to English or French to English, answering the RFP, and then translating it back from English to whatever language the RFP was requested in. They needed that turnaround time. So what they're actually doing is winning business and spending such a small amount of money. And their main driver was turnaround time. So that quality is actually generating so much ROI for this organization. The procurement person just is justifying this spend very, very easily. So that's an idea for you. Speaking of ideas for you, I'm going to leave you with this, a little bit of homework or parting assignment, kind of a space exercise. So when was the last time you looked at your translation mix? When have you lined up your content type, what integration you're using there, and your translation solution? I have outlined here the sort of exercise that I've gone through before when looking at various accounts. Hey, the e-commerce site is going through the GDN and they're using full human translation and editing. They want to make sure that transactional experience for the customer is a fully immersive in-language, high-quality experience. For the iOS app, my customer still needs to make the decision. We just got set up with the API. What translation solution is probably right for them? All right. So I hope you gain something from this. Hopefully you can start thinking about pulling the right lever for your different content types and not hitting that, hey, we are only using this form of translation, because in 2024, that's probably not the right solution to go with. All right. So again, I'm Ryan Seuss. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions about this, if you're a customer, please reach out to your CSM. If you're not a customer, please reach out to our marketing team. Thank you very much.